Okay, today's daf is Yoma Ayin Aleph, Yoma 71. I'm going to compact my shear all into one shear. Sometimes I'll give a chiddush, sometimes not. I want to talk today a little bit about the Derech Eretz portion of the shear, about familial relationships. And I live here in Eretz Yisrael, and the rest of my family lives in America. It's hard to maintain a relationship with them, and everyone has their family lives and they're busy, and it's been a little difficult to maintain a relationship with some of my family. I made a comment that I was frustrated, with the fact that my overtures to make the family relationship stronger were not reciprocated. I sent a WhatsApp criticizing some of the people in my family. Today, I try to make it better. I sent a letter to the people who I criticized. I said it's not out of anger, it's a frustration. I really do love you and miss you, and I hope that we can have a real relationship, a two-way street relationship because let's face it, when you have a relationship where you're running after one person and they're picking up the phone and speaking to you for 5 or 10 minutes, it's not a real relationship. It's a fake relationship because they don't want to have the relationship with you. They're only doing it to be nice to you. And for most relationships, they're all relationships. If you want to have a good relationship with somebody, you have to have a real relationship. It's not really worth anything. It's meaningless to have a relationship where it's a one-way relationship. And there are certain relationships where you don't have to have relationships. You have relationships with friends. Do you have to have friends? Most people have friends. For me personally, as a married person, I think one male friend suffices. I've had a male friend usually, one male friend, a good friend. But it has to be a real relationship, a two-way relationship. We're both into it. We both enjoy each other's presence, and it's different than a familial relationship because you don't have to be there for a friend. There's no commitment. It's something that you want to do. It's not a necessity. I think a family relationship is more of a necessity. Where do I know that from? I mean, there's hints to it in the Torah. The Torah talks about that for Zayin Krovim, you're supposed to be matame. Zayin Krovim, you're supposed to mourn for them. You have to do avelos for them. A Kohen is matame for them, for their kvura. There's certain halachas, Zayin Krovim, and the Torah emphasizes it's not just saying this. It's a real reason that it's important to have a relationship with your family. It's not just a want; it's a necessity. And in order to have a real relationship, you have to translate that into. It has to be a want. You have to translate. Sometimes you have to translate a necessity into a want, and the Torah expects that of you. And but it has to be a real relationship. It's not a real relationship, and it's not going to go anywhere, and it's not really worth anything, in my opinion. And that's what I have to say about familial relationships. I think they're very important. I think they're ordained by the Torah, and you have to make an effort, and I'm trying to make an effort. Maybe I didn't do it in the right way, but I'm learning, and life's a work in progress, and I'll get there, and hopefully I'll have a good relationship with my family. Most of my family I do have a good relationship with, 'cause I'm a good guy, and people like me, and I do have good relationships with the people. When I have a relationship with someone, I have a very strong relationship, and we're not talking about wife and children over here. That for sure is also Zayin Krovim, and that's also even more important. So that has to be a real relationship also. It's hard. It's hard to have real relationships. It's hard to really care about somebody else. Sometimes when they're, it's like the Gemara says that Gadol Matzuva V'Osa, Misha'ena Matzuva V'Osa. It's harder. The reason being because it's harder to do something when you're commanded to do it. When someone else tells you to do something, you're not doing it out of your own volition. So there's less excitement. There's you feel someone else is forcing you to do it. People don't like to be told what to do. So when there's a necessity for something, you don't have so much excitement for that. So it's very hard to do that, translate, because a real relationship needs excitement. It needs volition. It needs that you want to do it. And if there's necessity to do it, it's very hard to want to do it. You say, "Oh, Torah commands me to do it. The Torah wants me to do it, but I really don't want to do it," because there's more of a yetzer hara to say, "I don't want to do it." But hopefully, you can translate the necessity into will, into something that you really want to do. There's a ratzon for it, and that's what the Torah ultimately wants from you. And I think also in a family relationship, because it's such a strong relationship as opposed to a friendly relationship, that a friendly relationship is basically all a want relationship, and you only do what's good for you, and you do what's best for you. And when it's not good for you, when it's hurting you, you end the relationship or you curtail the relationship. But familial relationship extends past wants, and you have to be there for the other person at their simcha, at their time, even though it is detrimental to you at that time. I mean, it's really detrimental. That's a different question. But if you to extend yourself for your family, that's for sure you have to do it for your wife, for your kids, for your family, to extend yourself. I think that's called for in Judaism. That's the necessity of a relationship. Relationship with necessity calls for you to extend yourself, to go beyond your natural means, to go beyond your wants. Hopefully it'll translate into a relationship where you want to have that relationship, and where it's a good relationship, because a really good relationship is a relationship of want, desire. When you want to have a relationship with somebody, that's a much stronger relationship, and it's oftentimes going to be a two-way relationship, because two-way relationship usually comes about when you both want it, and you want that relationship. So then it's a two-way relationship, because you both want it, and the necessity dictates that you can even go above and beyond. But that's all I have to say. That it's important. Two-way relationships are very important, and you have to distinguish between a fake relationship and a real relationship. All right, we'll start. The Gemara on the bottom of Ayin Amud Beis says, "Tana Rabbanu Ba Aaron El Ol Moed Lama Huba." Pasuk says in Vayikra, he comes into Ol Moed. Lahotzi es akavam zamachta, to take out the spoon and the pan that he used to put the fiery coals on when he used to do the avoda in the Kodesh HaKodashim. Shkola parsha kula nemra, top of Ayin Aleph Amud Aleph. Shkola parsha kula nemra l'seder chutz mi pasuk zeh. And the whole parsha is written in order, except for this pasuk. Because we know, like we just said before in yesterday's shir, the ayil, the karban ola, the ayil elo ve'ela am, the ayil, the ram of the Kohen Gadol and the ram of the people, that was done the big day zav. He changed from the big day lavan after he did the avoda in the heichal to the big day zav, where he did the elo and the ela am, and maybe brought some other karbanos. And then he changed back from the gold clothes to the white clothes in order to take out the kava amachta. And even though the kava amachta seems to come before the elo ve'elam, really it's the reverse. The elo ve'elam comes before the kava, going to get the kava amachta. Chutzi pasuk zeh, my time. Why do we have to say this? Amar Rav Chisda, Gmiri chamesh tfilos asar kiddushin tovel kohen gadol mekadesh b'bal yom. We have a tradition that he does 5 tefillos and 10 washings of his hands and feet. And if you say the psukim go as they say, basically he'll get the kafel machta in the white clothes after he did the avoda bifnim, and then he'll have gold, white, and gold, and that's it. Only 3 tefillos, shisha kiddushin, and 6 washings. Maybe it's not that he stops to do the elo ve'ela. Maybe he puts on the gold clothes in order to do sayer nasa b'chutz. A different one than Musafin. Amar Abaye, Amar Kar v'yatzav asa es oloso miyitzia rishona avid elo ve'ela am. The pasuk says v'yatzav asa. He comes out. He finishes the avoda in the heichal, which is the sprinkling of the blood of the par v'sayer and asa b'fnim. Once he goes out, so then it says he does v'asa, he does elo ve'ela am. So you see that he does that first before he does the kafel machta. Rava Amar Kro Pashat as big de abad she'ein talmud lomar asher lavash. The pasuk says he takes off the clothes that he wore. Why does it say that he wore? You should only take off clothes that you wear. Why does it say that he wore? That he wore it previously, talking about white clothes that he wore previously, and he took them off, and he put on gold clothes, and then he put the white ones on again. The same question as before. Maybe the gold clothes that he wore wasn't for Eilo Ve'alam, it was for the Sir Nasa B'chutz. Like we said before, the same answer. V'yatzav asa is talking about the Eilo Ve'alam. He does that immediately after leaving. Parsha Kula Nemra Ala Seder. The Gemara says the whole parsha is written Ala Seder. We said before, the only thing out of order is the Kafu Machta. The Gemara questions this. Is that the only thing written out of order? First it says that the chalavim, the innards of the sir hachatas, sir nasa b'fnim, and the par were burned on the mizbeach. And then it says, then you burn the actual animals, the par hachatas, sir hachatas. You burn the rest of the animals. That's the order of the psukim. But we said in the Mishnah a different thing. Aroa is kohen gadol shukore eno roa par v'soyer and israfin. We said in the Mishnah, someone who sees the kohen gadol when he reads the parsha, he doesn't see the par v'sar and israfin. We know that they murichatas when he burns them on his mizbeach afterwards. So the Gemara says, "Ema chutz mi pasuk zeh ve'elach." The Gemara says, except for this pasuk of the ketores, of retrieving the ketores from inside the kafel machta and ve'elach, and other psukim after that also weren't written out of order. My chazis the mishabashat cry. Why do you take the psukim out of order? Shabish mashnisa, say the mishnayos are out of order. Amar Abaye, Amar Krav, Amishaleach ve'asorif. Ma mishaleach de mikara, af sorif de mikara. It says the mishaleach and the sorif next to each other, just like the mishaleach, sending away a shem mishaleach, happened earlier, so too the sorif happened earlier. It happened before you burnt the parvasar, before you put the aimuri chatas. Adrav, ma sorif the hashta, am mishaleach the hashta. Whereas maybe you say the other way, connect them the other way, they make the hekish the other way. Just like a sorif you do now, you do later. So to mishaleach, shem mishaleach you do later. So the Gemara says the extra vav tells you that the mishaleach is done beforehand. Mashma. Rava Amar Kra Yamud Chai. He has a different libud. Ad Masa Yezak Glamud Chai. How long does the seer Hanasa B'fnim have to remain alive? Ad Shas Kapara, until you finish throwing the blood of the par Hanasa B'fnim, the parachatas, until the blood is thrown. When you throw the blood inside the heichal, inside the kodesh hakdashim, then you go and shech the seer hanaseh b'fnim v'sulo, and that's it. And only when right after that's done, then you do the seer hanaseh b'fnim, and immediately after that you do the seer mishaleach. So we know that the seer hanaseh b'fnim, the seer mishaleach are connected. They're one hagrola, so therefore that comes first. And along that with the par visar and israfin, and after that they murichatas. The Gemara says, Asi mishaleach matzu b'shuk l'kohen gadol. The mishaleach, the one who accompanied the seer mishaleach, finds the kohen gadol the next day after Yom Kippur in the shuk. Omer lo ishi kohen gadol asinu shlichuscha. He says to the kohen gadol, you did your shlichus. Matzu b'beiso, because he wants to give him kavod in front of the people. Matzu b'beiso. He finds him in his house, privately. The one who gives life, meaning Hashem, we did his shlichus. I mean, he doesn't necessarily give kavod to him. I'm a rabba. They would say when they relieve each other, they would say to each other, the person who gives life should give us long life and good life. I think our scroll translated misukanim means that we should be well provided for. We should have parnasa. You should live in front of Hashem. This is that you should live in a place where there's places to buy things, or you could say markets, shvakim are the markets, the stock market. You should invest in the stock market, but keep it there. Keep it in the stock market. Huh? Any tips for the stock market? There's a lot of tips. Most of them are very famous. You should, diversify your portfolio. Make sure you have stocks in a lot of different sectors. You should invest in either an ETF, which is based on the market index, like the S&P 500. I personally invest in Vanguard 500, VOO. It's one of the best ones. It averages about a 15% yield return every year. Those are important, and you could have a little speculative interest. They say 0 to 5% speculative interest, like cryptocurrency would be speculative. And also, don't day trade. Like I said before, keep it in the stock market for a long time. Put away money that you're not going to need right now. Keep it there for 10 years. It'll go up. The market always goes up eventually. Keep it there for 10 years. You'll get dividends from your stocks. That's the great thing about the stock market. You get dividends also. Plus, the value of the stock almost always goes up. And the rest of them, buy blue chip stocks. Buy good companies, growth companies. If you feel good about it, don't invest in the penny stocks. That's 0 to 5%. That's speculative. There are stocks. There's a theory of buying stocks called a contra fund. It's a type of fund. Buying stocks that are not performing well right now. If you have a good feeling about some of those stocks, I recommend buying those stocks if they're cheap. I bought Intel. There's a shortage of chips right now. I think that'll get better. I think that'll go up. Intel. AT&T is not doing so well, but I bought that also. It's a strong stock. It's not performing well. And if you're not going to buy a Vanguard or something like that, then invest in some mutual funds or hedge funds. Are a little more risky. You have to pay fees for that. But balance it. Most basic thing is balance, like life. So the Gemara is saying over here that you should invest in the stock market. The Western Wall is really Wall Street. Western Wall, Kosel HaMa'aravi, in the western part of the world, America. The Israel is the Middle East, called the eastern part of the world. The western part of the world, New York, is the western part of the world. So the Western Wall is Wall Street. So keep your money in there. Keep it for a long time. I got stocks when I was born. They were valued at $500. Now they're valued over $30,000. That's like almost 30-something years, but that's just a small example of, how much you invest. You invest $10,000 now, it could grow to $100,000 in 10 years, so maybe 15 years. So it's worth it, I'm telling you. It's impossible? No, listen, if you have 50% yield every year, it's very possible. 10% yield. All right, we'll leave the mathematics for all the calculus majors. Let's continue the Gemara now. Ki orech shnayim yorech yamim b'shnos chayim shalom yosifu lach. V'chi shanim shel chayim v'shanim she'en shel chayim. Are there years of life and years of, what is it called, shnos chayim, years of life? Every year is a year of life. Amar Reb Lezer she'en shel chayim. Amar Lezer elu shnos shel adam hamisapchos alav miral tova. These are the years of a person that change from him from bad to good. What does that mean exactly? Do you have any idea what that means? Years that change from bad to good? Not sure. Elechem ishim ekra amar rebrechi elu tamid chacham shedomen lenashim. They're like women. Ve'osin gvura kanashim. And they do strength. They exemplify strength like men. Because it says in the pasuk, Ishim is lashon Isha. It's talking about you should call out to Ishim, to Nashim, which are really men. He wants to do a wine korban, a wine libation on the Mizbeach. He should give wine to Talmidei Chachamim, not on Purim, because they'll become drunk and throw up. But Shenemar Elechem Ishim Ekra. It says you give them Ishim is the lashon of Eish al Mizbeach. Talk about Talmidei Chachamim. You give them something. What's a korban you give to Talmid Chacham? You give them wine. You give them a nice bottle of Bartanura wine. Bartanura, sparkling white wine. People like that one. I like it also. It's not so expensive. Amar Brecha Imroa Adam Shetorah Posekes Mizaro. If someone sees that his Torah is leaving from his kids, Isa Bas Talmid Chacham. He should marry. I guess this means after his wife passes away or he's megarish his wife, because of Takana Shemina Gershom. We don't have two wives nowadays. When did Rabbeinu Gershom end? It's over, Rabbeinu Gershom. It's 1,000 years he made it for. I think it's over already, but Yisa Bas Talmid Chacham. We should marry the Dora Talmid Chacham. Shenemar Im Yazkin Be'eretz Sharsho Uva Afar Yamos Gizo. If he grows old and his roots are ruined, Afar Yamos Gizo, and dirt, his stem is dying. Mereach Mayim Yafriach. It'll from the smell of water it'll grow. V'asak tzirk monet. It'll make branches like a sapling. I think that's the Art Scroll's word, sapling. Who knows what the word sapling means? I'm not sure. I think it means a young tree, young plant. The Yom Tov Hayosel La'ovav. He would make a Yom Tov, the Kohen Gadol, for his friends. Tanar about a Ma'isa b'Kohen Gadol Echad Sheyatza mi Beis Hamikdash. He would leave the Beis Hamikdash when he was finished with Avod on Yom Kippur the next day. Everyone was following after him. It was like Rav Gershon Eiel seems walking in the street, and everyone's following after him. Kevan the Chazunu l'Shamai v'Avtalion. They saw Shammai v'Avtalion, who were Gerim, and they were also Talmid Chachamim. Shavku l'Didei v'Azi Basar Shammai v'Avtalion. They left him. They went to Shammai v'Avtalion. L'Sof Asu Shammai v'Avtalion leave Turimine the Kohen Gadol. Shammai v'Avtalion. I guess they were walking to the Kohen Gadol. They said they're saying goodbye to the Kohen Gadol. Amar Lahen, he was a little angry at them. Yesum b'nei Amamin l'Shalom. He said the people that were descendants of the Umos HaOlam, non-Jews, that he should go in peace. Basically a backhanded way of saying that they're Gerim. Amar Lei, Yesum b'nei Amamin l'Shalom, da'avdin uvda da'aron. V'lo yesib ha'aron l'Shalom, da'avid uvda da'aron. He says the people that are from the nations, they're Gerim, they should go in peace because they act like Aaron. But the person who's a descendant of Aaron, you the Kohen Gadol, you're a descendant of Aaron, you don't act like Aaron, you shouldn't go in peace. Mishnah says, Kohen Gadol mishamish b'shmona kelim. Kohen Gadol wears 8 kelim, 8 vestments. V'hahed yod ba'arba, and the regular Kohen wears 4. What are the 4 that he wears? Biktones. I think Art Scroll translates as tunic. I don't exactly know what a tunic is. I think it's something maybe the Arabs wear. I'm not sure. It's a long shirt. Mechnasayim, and the article says breeches. I thought mechnasayim were pants. I guess breeches are like capris. They don't go all the way down to your foot. I'm not to the bottom of your feet. Not sure exactly. Mitznefet, and they wore a turban, v'avnate, a belt. Most of it loved Kohen Gadol, the choshen, the ephod. The Kohen Gadol wore the choshen, which was the breastplate, the ephod, and the thing which, the apron, which he wore underneath the choshen, u'me'il, and he wore a long robe, call it a frock. So for all those people, all those that want to wear a frock, it says you have to be a Kohen Gadol to wear a frock. So don't wear a frock unless you're a Kohen Gadol. We don't have a Kohen Gadol nowadays, so no more frocks. Now every day, every time someone here in Eretz Yisrael, you get married, you wear a frock all of a sudden in the yeshivish world. A brother-in-law who got a frock when he got married. And my wife's family is yeshivish, Haredi, but they don't wear frocks. My father was a rabbi, he never wore a frock. So he wore a frock at his wedding, and I think the first Yom Tov, he saw that no one was wearing a frock. So he stopped wearing the frock. So I spoke at a Sheva Brachos to my new brother-in-law, and I made a joke to him, and I said that hopefully one day you'll become a Rosh Hashiva, and you can wear a frock, and then my other brother-in-law will put his frock away. Will also be able to don the frock. He won't feel embarrassed anymore to wear his frock. So you should have a bracha, you should become Rosh Hashiva. But the truth is, even if you become Rosh Hashiva, you shouldn't wear the frock. No more frocks. And I don't know, some people wear Hasidish, the long. They say it's Jewish to wear long. Um, I don't know. My name is Lang. It's close to Long, so I don't know. Am I Jewish? Yeah, I'm Jewish. But but it's better to be to have the name Lang than to go Long. Uh, Even if it's not a Jewish name, Lang. But it's better to have that name than to go Long. I don't know why you have to wear a you have to have. It says the reason that Hasidim wear this is because it says in Mitzrayim that they were in Mishana. One of the things they didn't change was their malbushim. They didn't change their clothing. So they say that you have to wear Jewish clothes, you have to talk Jewish, you have to have Jewish names, because they didn't do it in Mitzrayim. So the question is that basically, what is this? These things are not even halachas, and if they were on the 49th level of Tumah, that means they're doing all the averos. So what does it mean? So they did all the averos, but these things they didn't do? No, I think it just means that Malbushim didn't change Malbushim, meaning they followed the halachas of Malbushim. They were on the 400th level of Tumah, they did immorality, they did a lot of Averos, but the Averos for these three things they didn't do. They didn't name their kids after Avodah Zarah, they didn't curse, they had a clean language, and they wore tzitzis, and they didn't wear kilayim. That's all it means. It doesn't mean you have to dress Jewish, or act Jewish, or speak Jewish, speak Yiddish. In Borough Park they call, my grandmother, at least lived in Borough Park, she called Yiddish Jewish. So I used to say they speak Jewish over there. I don't know if it's Jewish to speak Yiddish, but a lot of Jews do speak Yiddish. Is that what Jewish think? I don't think so. I think it's a lot more Jewish to speak Lashon HaKodesh, but I prefer English over Lashon HaKodesh. It's more of an international language, Yeah, me and my kids. My kids grow up here in Israel, and they learn Hebrew, and they know Hebrew better than English, and it's a little scary for me because, I want my kids to know fluent English. Hebrew they can know like me; they can get by. You only need Hebrew in Israel. English you need for the rest of the world. All right, where it says Amil v'tzitz, he would wear this long robe v'tzitz, and he would wear the tzitz, which is the piece of metal across his forehead, which says Kadosh LaHashem Beilu, a piece of gold. Beilu nishalan b'urim v'tumim. Ein nishalan el lamelech ula'av beistin ul mishat tzibur sarich lo. He would. There's only certain people could ask the urim v'tumim questions. The melech, av beistin, the one in charge of the head of the beistin, is the Sanhedrin ul mishat tzibur sarich lo, and someone that the people need, a leader of the people, that people need. Tanraban, Advarim Shnemar Behen Sheish, Chutan Kafel Shisha. Whenever it says Sheish, which also means linen, it had to be, the strings had to be 6 strings, 6 strands of the same string. Mashzar, whenever it says Mashzar, Shmona, it's 8 strands of the same string. Me'il, Shnei Masar, the Me'il at 12 strands of the same string. Parochet, Esrim V'Arba, 24. Choshen V'Ephod, Esrim V'Shmon, 28. Chutan, Kafel, Shisha Minala. How do you know that whenever it says Sheish, it's 6 strands of string? The Amakra, Vayasu, as Hakatones, Sheish, Vesamitz Nefesh, Sheish, as Pari Amigbaos, Sheish, Vesmichse Abad, Sheish Mashzar, Chamisha Krai Ksivi. 5 psukim, it says the word Sheish. Chad Laguv. I wanted to tell you that it actually means linen. The Kitna Nehavu, that it's linen. V'chad Shihu Shkuta and Kafel Shisha. Second time it says the word Sheish to tell you that all the strands should be 6, that all the times it uses a thread, it should be 6 strands of that thread. V'chad Shihu Shizur, and one that they should be intertwined. V'chad L'shar Begadim. The other one is for all other begadim that are not made out of linen. They should also have chut on kafel sheish. Shall never behen sheish. V'chad la'akiv. And one is to tell you that it's ma'akiv to have a chut on kafel sheish. My mashma the high sheish kitnahu. How do you know that the word sheish? The first explanation is that it's linen. How do you know it means linen? Amar Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina da Amar Kra Bad. It says bad. Davar ha'ola min ha'karka bad. It comes in a single strand. It doesn't branch out into 2 strands. Ve'ema imra. Maybe it's like wool, which grows 1 piece of hair at a time. Imra if sule mifsla. Sometimes the strands of wool that come on the sheep, they branch out into 2 strands of hair from 1 hair. Kidna nami ifsul mifsal, but sometimes linen also does that. Kidna agav lekuse mafsil. Sometimes only when you beat the linen, and then it diverges into two strands, but otherwise it'll remain straight. Ravina Amar Mahacha. Piri pishtim yu al rosha michse pishtim yu al masneim. It says the hats were made out of pishtim and the pants were made out of pishtim. So pishtim is linen, so you know the sheish is pishtim. Amar Ravashi hamakami da'asi Yechezkel man amra. This pasuk was said in Yechezkel. Yechezkel said they're made out of pishtim. So before Yechezkel came, he came later on. How did the Torah know that it meant linen? A different halacha we learn from Yechezkel. What do we learn? Kol beinecha arel leiv arel basar layav al mikdashi l'sharsteini. Anyone who's a mummer, he doesn't believe in Hashem, or he's arel basar, he didn't have a milah. He can't do the avoda. Where do we know this before Yechezkel came? It doesn't say in the Torah. We had a tradition. And Yechezkel came and derived it from a pasuk. So to over here by linen, to show that sheish is linen, this is the same derivation. Masher Shmona. When it says the word Masher, it means 8 strands. Minala. And the Chsiv Ayastu al Shule Amiel Rimoni Tcheles Ragaman Salas Shani Masher. It says they used to make these pomegranates, these balls on the bottom of the meal, and they're made out of 3 things: Tcheles, Argamon, Salas Shani, Masher. The Yalev Masher Parochas Malahalan Esrim Ba'arba. We're going to see later on that's 24 strands. Afkan Esrim Ba'arba. So too the Rimonim also 24 strands. It's funny, and since there are 3 materials over here, so therefore each of them were 8. Each of them were 8 strands. Learn from Choshen which are 28. Malahalan Esrim Vishmona. Kan Esrim Vishmona. Dan in Davar Shal Nemer Bozav. Davar Shal Nemer Bozav. Lafuki Choshen Ephod Nemer Bozav. You can't learn from Choshen Ephod because there they have gold, and the parochas didn't have gold in it. So we learn from there. How could you learn from the parochas? It's not a piece of clothing, it's an oel, it's a partition. So the Gemara says you learn from not from the parochas, learn from the avnei. And you learn, which was also a beged, and it doesn't have zav. From something we don't learn from Choshen Ve'ifo, which have zav. Rav Mariam or Tasenu ksiv Tasenu lezev v'la'acher. It says in the pasuk that you should make it in the Choshen. It you should make with 28 strands, but nothing else, not the rimonim on the meal. Ravashi Amar Sisa ksiv she'll call it sios shava. It says by the rimonim that it says about sisa. You should make them. It sounds like they should all be even. The tchelas, argamon, with shani should all have an even amount of strands. How are you going to do it? Navid tlasada sara. If all 3 of them have 10, havalut tlasa, it's going to be 30. Navid trade tisha v'chada sara, 1 of 10 and 2 of 9 to have 28. Amakra vasisa should call sios shavos. Therefore, they have to be 8 to be like to be 24 and not to be 28 like the Eva and the Choshen. This is the conclusion of today's shir of Yoma Ayin Aleph. We had a participant for a little bit of it. He was asking about the stock market. A little bit of discussion with him. Hopefully, more people will eventually come to my shir. If you like the shir, even if you don't like it, press the like button, press the subscribe button, and have a good Monday.